Just get started. So thanks very much for joining us this afternoon, everybody. We're going to look at finalising the CA diary and then take you through the process of how to finalise your diary, progress into membership then, so you can really open up the next chapter of your chartered journey. So I suppose before we jump into the presentation itself, just to take a moment to recognise how far you actually have come, and that really you have got most of the hard work behind you at this stage. There's very little left. I know for some of you, you have longer left, or maybe up until the end of the year in your training contracts. Some people are coming out of contract in the next few weeks. So really the hard work is behind you. A little bit more of a push to get the final bits closed off in your CA diary, and then hopefully we're there to support you with smoothly progressing into membership. And once you get into membership, a whole wealth of opportunities open up to you, and you have a wonderful supportive community there to support you through the next stages of your career. So what we're going to look at today is that eligibility to apply for membership. We'll walk you through the process of finalising the CA diary and submitting your application to membership. We will point you towards some common errors. So when you do submit your application to membership, your diary would come through to us in the training support unit, and we would undertake a detailed review of your diary record to ensure that it has met all the requirements that it needs to. Sometimes we need to go back to trainees and ask them to correct some items in the diary, or to maybe enhance entries a little bit further. So we point you towards the most common mistakes that we see, because it's a really good time now, if you take the time to review your diary record after this session, check if you have made any of those mistakes, and if you have, get in contact and we can help you correct them. But it's a really good time now to check all of that, so that you're assured once you do submit your application to membership, there's going to be no delays with you getting through to membership. We'll also just take a look at the audit qualification and the requirements that your diary has to meet if you are training in audit, and then pointing you towards all those support and resources that are there. Okay, so hopefully by the time you have been admitted to membership, we will be able to be back to the physical graduation ceremonies, because they are a really lovely way to mark your journey and mark getting through to membership. So just as a reminder, in order to get to that stage, so to be able to get to your final review stage, you need a completed CA diary and success at the FAE. Both of those parts come together to make you eligible to submit an application to membership. And it's only at that stage, once you have received confirmation that you've been admitted to membership, it's only at that stage that you can call yourself an ACA, that you can use the ACA designation after your name. So just to quickly look at the process to get you to that stage. So there's kind of 4 key steps in the process to firstly make you eligible for the final review, and then once the final review has been completed, to ensure that you get access to your application to membership forms. The first element that you need to have met in order to become eligible for the final review is that you need to have completed your period of training. So whether you are on a training contract or the flexible route, you need to have completed your assigned REQ period. So that's the recognised experience for qualification period. Now this will depend on the educational background that you came to Chartered Accountants Ireland with. So if you came from an undergrad degree, you would have been assigned a 3.5-year training period. If you were coming from a master's, you would have been assigned a 3-year training period. And then if you came from Accounting Technicians Ireland, you would have been assigned a 4-year training period. So firstly, that needs to be completed. If you are in a training contract, it will be your training contract end date. If you're on the flexible route, it will be your REQ period must have passed since your registration date. So in terms of the diary then, once your REQ period has been completed, your diary needs to meet a number of requirements in order to become eligible for the final review. The first one, as we said, your REQ period needs to be completed. Then all of your diary entries need to be locked. Now remember, your diary entries should cover the entire period of your training contract. So your diary entries should start at your contract start date and end on your contract end date. So you should have a complete CA diary record reflecting the entire term of your training period. All of those entries should be locked. There should be no entries at unlocked, submitted to mentor, or with student status. You should also have no outstanding requests for a 6-monthly review, because the open status of any review requests would block you from being picked up as eligible for the final review in the system. All competency requirements must be met, and we'll look at the competencies in just a second that you need to meet. You need to have achieved the minimum number of required days. And again, this is based on your REQ period. So if you were in a 3.5-year training contract, you would have to achieve 682 experience days. So you need to have achieved the minimum number of days, and you also need to have a minimum of 5 6-monthly mentor reviews recorded on your record. So if we look at those competency requirements, firstly, you need to have met the core competencies plus at least one area of experience group at the integrate level. So within core, you have professional values and business environment. And I'm sure most of you are aware at this stage that those competencies are like your generic transferable skills. And then you also need financial reporting. You will note that within financial reporting, there are a total of 6 competencies. For admission to membership purposes, it's just the first 4 that are mandatory. So you need to have achieved FA 1, 2, 3, and 4 at the integrate level. And then in addition to your core competencies, you also need to have achieved a minimum of 1 from either auditing or tax or finance or IT. Okay, so they need to be achieved at the integrate level. A common query that we would get, and if you do have any questions coming to mind at this stage, feel free to drop them into the questions function that you have on screen, and Hugh can pick them up there, and we'll also dip in for some common queries at the end of the session as well. But a common query we would get around the competencies are, I have achieved all of my competencies at the integrate level, but I'm missing, let's say, TX 1 and CB5 at the understand level. Is this going to be an issue for me? And the answer is no, because it can be quite normal, especially maybe if you had started your training in one department and maybe changed to a different team or completed a secondment during your training and were achieving different competencies. It can be quite normal to miss out on the odd competency at understand or apply. Once you have them at the integrate level, that's what you need for becoming eligible for the final review. So we need all core plus at least one technical area at the integrate level. And if we just flick back to the 5 requirements, so the day your diary record meets all 5 of these requirements, an overnight process takes place that night. So the following morning, you should see this option on your CA Diary dashboard, the option to request the final review. Bear in mind, that's an overnight process, so you need to wait until the next morning for that to become available. If you select that, then your mentor does get an automatic notification that the final review has been requested. But just in case for any reason that doesn't trigger, we would advise that you do let them know that you've requested the final review. It becomes instantly available on your mentor's dashboard then. So if your mentor has the availability to complete it that day, it can be completed that day, and then another overnight process takes place. So the second overnight process takes place when your final review has been completed by your mentor, and the following morning you will see a new option on your CA Diary dashboard called Admission to Membership Requests. Now, just sometimes when trainees click this option on the CA Diary dashboard, they can get an error message. If that does happen to you, if you clear your cache, so if you select F5 on your keyboard, it will clear the cache on your device, and then select that option again and it will let you into the correct page. If you continue to have difficulties with that, this option is also available under the My Account section. It's called Membership Application when you go to My Account. So you have it in two places, on the CA Diary dashboard and then also under My Account. If you're having trouble accessing one of them, you can always go to the other one. So when you click this option, then you will be brought through to a new page where you get access to your application to membership forms. Okay, so just to kind of highlight that, I think it's one of the most overlooked parts of the process that we would find. A lot of people don't realize that there's two overnight processes that need to take place. So when you are working out your plan to meet the next admission to membership deadline, and when you're contacting your mentor to make sure they have availability to complete the final review, do remember that you need to account for those two overnight processes. So your diary is completed, an overnight process takes place, which allows you to gain access to the final review. And then once your final review has been completed, another overnight process takes place, and the following morning you'll gain access to the application to membership forms. So when you do get through to that final stage of the application to membership forms, you will be brought to a page that has these 5 steps detailed up the top. So what you're doing is firstly reviewing your details to ensure that your contact details are correct and up to date. Then you will gain access to a CA Diary final training review, a summary document of what's been recorded in your CA Diary. That document has to be printed and signed by your training partner along with the application form itself. Then you are submitting your application and paying through that page also, which finalizes your application. You will receive communication from our colleague Rose in admissions. So Rose's email, keep an eye out for it. It's admissions@charteredaccountants.ie. And close to the time of you becoming eligible for membership, Rose will reach out to you with an information email detailing all the steps that you need to follow. And once your application has been received and everything is okay with it, Rose will confirm that to you as well. Just to note that the individual signing your application to membership forms, they need to be a member of Chartered Accountants Ireland. If you are in a training contract, it will be the training partner at your firm. If you're applying as a flexible route applicant, just remember that individual needs to be a member of the institute themselves. So the next deadlines for the receipt of applications to membership are the 3rd of May, June 1st, September 6th, November 1st, and December 6th. So they are all the 2022 deadlines. And we would always advise that you submit your application where possible. Try and submit your application a week to a few days in advance of the deadline. And that's to ensure that when your diary comes through to us in training support for review, that we have time to carry out the review, but we also have time to reach out to you in case there's any issues you need to correct, that there's time there for us to reach out to you and for you to correct them, and then your mentor relock the entries in question. So as I said, your diary comes through to us in training support for review. And when we are reviewing diaries, just to highlight, I suppose, the common mistakes that we would see in diaries. The first one is the learning levels not matching documented experience. So remember, in all CA Diary guidance, you are recommended to follow the learning level pathway of understand in year 1, apply in year 2, and integrate in year 3. Integrate when you are kind of really progressing through and taking on the senior roles in jobs. So that's probably one of the most common mistakes we would see, is that people have maybe mixed up their levels, or they've claimed integrate too early in their training. That is something that the new format of the CA Diary has looked to improve. So you will notice in the new format that the learning level names have been renamed to avoid people mixing them up. So they're now called Understand Level 1, Apply Level 2, and Integrate Level 3. So when you're reviewing your diary record, do make sure that you have selected the correct levels. Also remember, any trainings should always be recorded at the Understand level. Okay, so if it is a shorter training, if it's a 1 or a 2 day training, we generally wouldn't ask you to split that out in its own entry at Understand level. But if the training went on for longer, like if it was a 1 or a 2 week training before you progress into year 3 maybe, then you should record that entry on its own at the Understand level. And then you can continue with the rest of your integrate entries. Leave, recording leave, again, is another place that people would fall down in. So you shouldn't have a standalone entry only for a period of leave. Your leave should always be incorporated into an entry that details at least 1 day relevant experience. So the way you should be recording leave is, let's say, for example, you know that you're going on study leave in May, so you might create an entry for May and June. You would code your study leave days under the study leave category, and then the competencies and the experience days and the narrative of that entry are going to be talking about what work you did when you returned to the office after study leave. The another mistake or reason we have to go back to people is using the same narrative for several competencies claimed. So this is something that has cropped up, I suppose, since the CA Diary platform was upgraded in November last year. And some trainees have been directly kind of copying and pasting the narrative between a number of different competencies. What we don't want to see is a direct copy and paste between competencies. It is completely normal that you might find that one competency description you've given is applicable to another competency, but try and differentiate between your competency descriptors. So you might say that the description you've provided in a previous competency is also relevant to this competency, but tell us how is it also relevant? Why is it also relevant? So try and expand on that a little bit, because each competency is different. So there should be some variance in how your descriptions cover off a number of different competencies. Entries created for longer than 3-month periods. So the maximum duration we can accept per entry is 3 months of relevant experience. If you submit a 6-month entry, we would have to go back to you and ask you to split that out further. And that's something that could potentially delay your admission to membership. So any entries that are beyond 3 months, they should be split out into shorter periods. And then another mistake we would see is entries. So I've already kind of covered this, but do make sure that your entries only cover the period between your contract start date and your contract end date. Your entries shouldn't go beyond your end date or prior to your start date. And then something else to look out for is, do make sure that your mentor has provided good tangible feedback in those 6 monthly mentor reviews for you. Okay, so your mentor reviews, the narrative that your mentor has provided in those reviews, they shouldn't be copy and paste of each other either. They should be individual, good, tangible feedback on your experience that you've gained in those 6 months. So if your diary then is all in order and we have identified no issues with your diary when we review it, you essentially get the checkered flag, you're good to go. You won't hear from us in training support if there are any issues with your diary. You'll only get contact from us if there's something that needs to be corrected. Okay, so once we have approved your diary for membership, then You're just waiting for the next deadline to pass, and you should receive communication from Rose in admissions, usually 5 to 7 working days after the deadline. Rose would confirm that you have been admitted to membership, and from that point you can use the ACA designation then. Okay, so just a quick note on the audit qualification requirements. So if you have trained in a recognised training firm supervised by a statutory auditor, if you have passed the FAE and the audit elective at FAE, and if you have at least 46 practical training weeks, so in ROI, if you have 46 statutory audit weeks recorded in your diary, or in Northern Ireland, if you have at least 23 statutory audit weeks and then the remainder of other audit, you would be, once you get through to membership, you would receive communication from our colleague Rebecca inviting you to apply for the audit qualification. Okay, so that is a separate qualification, a separate process that's separate from membership and the ACA qualification, and that is taken care of once you do get through to membership. But as part of the audit qualification review, so when the audit reviewer is considering your eligibility for the audit qualification, the information that is looked at is what has been recorded in your CA diary. So that's why it's so important to get all of your audit information in your CA diary when you're a student recorded correctly, because once you get through to membership, you can't go back and change any information that was recorded in your CA diary. So it's really important to get it correct when you're a student, because that information is looked at then when you apply for the audit qualification as a member. There's loads of support folks there to help you with determining your eligibility for the audit qualification. There's guides on the website. So the first place we would point you towards is the guide to recording audit days. It's on the CA Diary resources page of the website, which I'll point you to now in a second. But in addition to that guide, you also have an appendix for your jurisdiction. So there's an ROI and an NI appendix to that document. And that gives you specific examples of what qualifies as statutory audit work and what qualifies as other audit work. So really familiarising yourself with those two guides is key to getting the audit information correct in your diary. All other CA Diary guides and resources are also there for you. So if you go to charteredaccountants.ie, navigate to the current students tab, and then you'll see the very last option on the right hand side is for CA Diary resources. On that page, you will find everything you need to know about the CA Diary. So you have, as we said, your guidance for recording audit experience. You have the PDF guides there. So professional development requirements explains the whole competency framework. You have a guide for your mentors, but your mentor also has a separate web page. It's a page just off the CA Diary resources page, so you will see a link to it there. And on that page, mentors have a whole host of resources, webinar recordings, short video tutorials to support them through the journey. You have a trainee guide. So the trainee guide takes you through everything you need to know about the diary. It provides guidance on how to record your leave. There's also a sample entries guide to give you an idea of what we're looking for in entries. Flexible route, mentor approval form, and then the training regulations. On that page also, you have a summary of changes document and a webinar recording that relate to the changes that were made to the platform in November 2021. So imagine the majority of you would have engaged with the old platform, and now you might be finalising your diary in the new platform. If you have any edits to make to older entries, there's some short YouTube tutorials at the bottom of this webpage that guide you through how to modify entries that were created in the old and submitted or modified in the new platform. As I said, there's a summary of changes document that takes you through all the changes that were made, and there's a webinar recording there where we ran through all of those changes also. So we are here to support you. We're here to help you as much as we can get the diary finalised and get through to membership as smoothly as possible. So As I said, it's a really good time now to take the time to review your record, make sure that you're not making any of those mistakes that we see. If you are, or if you'd like to talk about anything, or if there's any blockers to you getting to this stage, we're here to help. So please do reach out to us at either training support at charteredaccountants.ie, or the phone number is also on screen.